In this demo, I'm going to look at the second part of the final POE for NWAR5122. In the last video, I had a look at, let's have a look at your POE document. I had a look at activity 1, where we had a look at the network solution proposal. So what I've done now is I've just created a rough copy of a network design proposal. And so you would have a cover page with your details on it, Subain, student number, the date, what's the name of your company, and details. Thereafter, you would have a table of contents. Then you will have a disclaimer. This is what a disclaimer looks like, that the proposal is only for information purposes and it's not a binding agreement. Background, you'll take the background from the scenario. Background, we said, was if I go into learn, or if I go up into the POE document, we've covered it previously, but let's just go and open up learn again so that we can reference the network diagram that we've drawn previously. Okay, this is the diagram that I'm talking about that we were referencing previously. This is describing the Library and Multimedia Technology Center. Now, going back into this document, so I've broken it into the different sections according to the marking rubric. Description or summary of the solution. Here you have put in network components, client servers, printers, projectors, meeting room, etc. All of this now you've already specified in assignment or part 1 and part 2. So whatever you have already done in part 1, part 2, that's the info you're going to put into this proposal or solution. The network type, LAN, WAN, you've also discussed in part 2. Ethernet, LAN, the standard for that is IEEE 802.3. The WAN, what did you describe previously? And wireless, IEEE 802.11 AX, Wi-Fi 6. Network topology, like star topology is an example. Network segmentation, this part is new to us, so I've given you an example here. One forest with one domain is used. The namespace is going to be Subain lmtc.gov as your domain name. Yours would be your name, LMTC for Library and Multimedia and Training Center.gov. Remember when we did the installation of the Active Directory domain, we gave it a domain name. So in your proposal document, you would specify what that name is going to be. Two sites are created. They said city 1 is one site and city 2 is another site. Network segmentation, this part here, IP addressing. Remember in assignment or part 1, they asked us to do a subnetting example. I've taken the IP address 192.168.10.10, and then we have subnetted this network like we did previously. And then there's various ranges that have been created. So I've said these are the different ranges of IP addresses that's going to be used. The first network is 192.168.10.0, and the IP addresses in this range is going to go from 1 to 30. Next one is .32. The IP addresses goes from 33 to 62. All of this I can go and set up in the server, and we'll show you how to do that just now. Actually, let's go and set it up in the server whilst we're looking at this. I go into my Hyper-V and I'm looking for my server virtual computer. In my server virtual computer, I'm going to go into server manager. Now, IP addresses are set where? In DHCP. So I click on the start or the Windows and then I go to Server Manager. Remember, Server Manager will only be found in the server computer. If you're looking for Server Manager and you can't find it, it means that you're working in the client computer. There I can see DHCP. I'm going to go to Tool, and I'm going to look for DHCP. In the last video, we set up DHCP, but we only set up one scope or one range of IP addresses. So if I double click here and I click on IP, I can see I've got a scope here, and there's the address pool that I set up the last time. I set it up from 10.10 to 10.100. The other scopes that I can set up here is according to that example that I was just showing you. So for example, here I can set up another scope from 10.33 to 10.62. Or I can go and create all of these here. So I can go back here, IP version 4, right click, say new scope, go next. And then I gave that one the name Suben scope. That was just for a demo. And then this scope now can be used for which part of the diagram? Let's see. In the network, we have a scope for the library. We have a scope for connection lab. We have a scope for media and technologies facility, IT support office, server room. Can you see for each of these different departments, I can have a different range of IP addresses. I'm going to set up a scope now for library. So I'll call this Suben library scope. I go next. It says, what is the start and end IP address? It will be according to what I have set here. So start is 10.33 and it goes to 10.62. Is this recording? Yes. So back into my server, 192.168.10.33. And then it goes to 192.168. .33 to 62. I go next. It says it conflicts with an existing scope because I've already got these IP addresses. So I'm going to cancel this. I'm going to go in. This one was just for demo purposes. I'm going to delete that one. Yes, I want to delete it. And I want to create the correct scopes now. So new scope. Next. The first one we said was going to be Suben library. And now I'm going to start from the correct range. I'll start from the first one, .1 to .30. 192.168.10.1, and it goes to 30. 192.168.10.30. I'll go next. And I'm just going to accept all of the defaults. I'm just going to go through it very quickly so that I can show you the different scopes. Then I can say right click, new scope. And what's the next department that we have? Connection lab. So I go back in here and I say next, Suben Connect Lab. So in the connection lab, they're going to use these IP addresses. Which IP addresses? The next one, 33 to 62. So 192.168.10.33, 192.168.10.62. And then I keep going next. Oh, the mask is not correct. It's complaining that the mask is not correct. So I need to cancel this and go and correct the mask here. So on this scope, I'm going to go to its properties. Oh, can you see the subnet mask was not correct here because we subnetted it. So the subnet mask should be there's the mask here. It should be 255.255.254. So my mask that I created was incorrect. So I'm going to go back now and do it with the correct mask. So this was Subain library. One nine two one six eight 10.1, and that went out to 1 to 30. One nine two one six eight 10.30, and here we increase the mask until I get to 224. Okay, so the length must be correct here. Then I go next, 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 and continue. Finish, new scope. And this is going to be Subain. And we said this one was the next one, Connect Lab. Go next. And this was 192.168.10.33 to 62. 33 to 62. So 33, 192.168.10.62. And we increase the length here as well until I get to 224. Go next, 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 and finish. Okay, so I've shown you the first two. You are going to complete the rest. Can you see? I've got here a scope for the connection lab, and I've got a scope for the library. That's what they mean by I need to configure all of this information inside of my server. Yes, I'll show you the screenshots just now. Then network protocols, you mentioned this in assignment 2, in part 2. HTTP, SMTP, POP3, etc., whatever protocols and access methods that you said, CSMA, CD, all of that was covered there. Then network architectures, client server versus directory services, you discussed that previously. Remember, we are using Active Directory. So you're going to be discussing Active Directory and how it relates to the server, to the scenario. Performance, security and performance. Have you implemented firewalls and how have you configured it? There's the firewall there. Cryptography is certificate services. And then security tools, whatever else has been configured here. Now, the screenshots that we said we were going to be taking, adequate configuration of the network infrastructure, the hardware. So I need to go and take some screenshots on what hardware was set up. If I go into Hyper-V Manager, I'm just going to maximize this so I can see what's happening. Here's my Hyper-V Manager. The first one we said we'll take a screenshot of the different physical computers that was installed. So I can go to the server. I've got settings here. So this is the server that was created. And I can do the same for the client as well. So I'm going to go back outside and I'm going to open up my snipping tool. Right. So this actually doesn't tell me much information. So I'm just going to cancel that. I just need to show that I've got these two servers that have been created here. So I'm going to do this screenshot rather. Hyper-V Manager. So I'm going to take Hyper-V Manager screenshot. And I'm going to describe the two servers. One server and one client installed in Hyper-V. I need to go and show that these computers are working. I'll go into the properties of these computers. So firstly, I'm going to look at the server, right click on the server, go to system, or I can take a picture of system manager. Okay, so I'm going to take a snip of this one. This shows that my server has been installed. So server installed and renamed. I need my client. Where's my client? There's my client here. I'm going to go to its properties, system, and then there's its Subin Win10C. Client computer installed and renamed to Subin Win10C. Then I also needed to show that they were both connected to the same switch. I'm going to go back to Hyper-V Manager and then click here on where's the switches. There's it here, virtual switch manager. I've got a private switch here. So I'll take a screenshot of this one. Can you see my screenshots includes the virtual switch? It includes my virtual computer, so it's clearly identifying all my information. Um, virtual private switch. So what have I showed so far? I've shown the two physical computers that have been installed in Hyper-V Manager. I've shown there's the actual computer that has been installed, its properties. That's my server, that's my client. Then I've shown that they are both connected to this, or I've shown I've got a virtual switch. I can now show that the client is getting the IP address from the server. So I'm going to go into the client. There's my client. So this is Windows 10 C. And I can go into its, let's go to this network and sharing center. And I want to see on Ethernet, adapter options. Right click, go to its properties. I want to see that this one is set to automatically get its IP address from the server. Yes. If I double click on it now, it shows me there's no internet access, but is it connected? Yes, it's connected. I don't want the properties, I want detail. Okay. If I click on details now, you can see that this client computer has got an IP address from where? From the server computer. It's DHCP enabled. Its IP address is 192.168.10.11. I can actually go and refresh this information. So I'm going to close this, close this. I'm going to go into the command prompt. So I'm going to go CMD, command prompt, and I'm going to say ipconfig /release. So I need to run the command prompt as a administrator. So CMD, run as administrator. So ipconfig and then ipconfig renew. So now I can see that, can you see 192.168.10.11, 255.255.255.224. This is all the correct information. This is showing the client getting the IP address information from the server. I can go and screenshot this now. Client obtained IP address from the server. And that's showing me now my infrastructure is correct. Naming conventions and IP addressing matches the details in the proposal. So here I'm going to take a picture of DNS. That's the naming convention. And then I'm going to take a picture of IP address is DHCP. Go into here. DNS and DHCP is configured in the server. So I'm going to go to the server virtual computer. Here's my server. And I'm going to, there's my DHCP. So I'm going to screenshot this one. IP addresses configured for the following scopes, and then you list the scopes here. Okay, so your description needs to be telling me what is happening inside of the scope, because just now we look at the marking rubric, and from the marking rubric you'll see they give you marks for the writing about the screenshot. The other one that we said was DNS, we needed to take a screenshot of. So I'm going to go and take a screenshot of DNS. This was DHCP, which is my IP addresses. Next one, I'm going to go to Server Manager, and I'm going to go to Tools, and I'm looking for DNS. And from DNS now, I'm just going to click until I go to the forward lookup zones, and it shows me there's Suben, right? And then I can click on the site's default first site name, TCP IP, TCP IP. Okay, so the domain DNS, I'm just expanding these to see all of the DNS information that's here. Okay, so there's a name server here. It is for my domain. Okay, so this is the kind of information that I'm looking for when they talk about name server or namespace and naming conventions. I'm going to go and take a screenshot of this. So there's my DNS. And then I'm going to describe the namespace, naming conventions and namespace. The namespace is Suben lmtc.gov. And then I'll write more information about naming conventions and what other information is found inside this DNS picture that I've taken. Next one, configuration of logical network infrastructure. This one is talking about Active Directory. What is configured in Active Directory? In Active Directory, I'll go back to my server now, and I'm going to go to Tools, Active Directory, Sites and Services first, because I want to create 2 sites. So currently I can see that I've got a site and it's called default first site name. I'm going to rename this one to Subin LMTC City or LMT City 1. And I'm going to create a new site. And I'm going to call it Subin LMTC City 2. Okay, so I can see now in Active Directory sites and services, I've got 2 sites that have been set up. There's my first one, and then I'll set up a second one here. I'm just going to add another server, new server, and I'm going to say Subin DC1, and this is for City 2. City 2. Okay, I'm going to go and screenshot this. Two sites for LMTC. .gov domain. And then City 1, City 2, and any other information. Then I need to also show Active Directory here. So I'm going to go to Tools, Active Directory Users and Computers. And this is the original domain that I set up in the first demo. So I'm going to go to the different, just expand these. And then I'll go down to the users. And I'm just going to drag this across so I can see clearly that it's Active Directory users and computers. And there's my server here, and there's the domain that's created. So go here, new screenshot. And then I'm going to put that in here. So Active Directory is installed for the lmtc.gov domain. And I need to put more information about this Active Directory, the users, etc., that has been created. Configuration of network services. Here as well, you're going to be writing information about DNS and DHCP. So I'm just going to copy that one there. I'm going to put the same screenshot, but the descriptions is going to be different. So that screenshot goes there, and then DHCP. So that's DHCP and then DNS. And I'm going to write some description here. For configuration of network security, you're going to put information about the firewall. So I go into the server and I type here firewall. There's Windows firewall. And if I've configured any inbound, outbound rules, etc., I'm going to write information about what have I configured on the server as well as on the client. So I'm going to take a snip here, and this one here is for the server. Now I'm pasting it twice because you need to take one for the server and one for the client. So Windows firewall configured on the server. You write what have you set on the server, and the same thing for the client. So just like I went to the server and I got the firewall, you can do the same for the client as well. And this one is going to be client. And you tell me what have you set on the firewall. Network performance and monitoring. So here I go into the server. You can do this on both the server and the client. I'm only doing the server, but you do it on both the server and the client. And I'm going to type performance. There's your performance monitor. And I'll expand the data collector set, the reports, etc. And I can look at, for example, system. I can go to performance. I can right click. I can start the service. I can let it run for some time whilst I'm doing different activities. So I need to generate some sort of activities. I can go and open up a couple of apps. So I'm just playing around in the server. I'm generating some system activity. Then once I have completed, I can then stop this. And then under the system reports here, I can see I've got a report for performance. There's a performance report that I've just created. So if I double click on that, it will then show me some sort of performance. I can then go and screenshot that. Now I can do this on both the client and the server. But for this demo, I'm only doing it on the server. So once I've done that, I'm going to go back into my document. And then I say, what is it that I've done? So system performance for the server. generated activity, and then you tell me, describe what's happening inside of the screenshot. So you can see they've got a summary of the CPU, of disk performance, of network, etc. So you'll describe what's happening inside this, both for the client as well as the server. Let's just see if we've covered everything here. So if I go back to my POE document, right, there's the cover page, network type, there's your marking rubric. We've covered that for the proposal. Activity 2, we've done that in the previous video. Make sure you've gone through these marking rubrics to ensure that you have all of the information in your network diagrams. For example, they're giving marks for the devices, for the connections, etc. The endpoints is the actual servers, labeling, cabling. So make sure that's all correct. And then activity 4, which is the virtual solution, that's the one I was doing in this video. You can see they're giving 20 marks for what? Network infrastructure. They're giving 10 marks for IP addressing and naming conventions. Then there's the 7 marks that I was saying for the narration. That's the description of the picture. They're giving 7 marks to tell what happened in that picture that you have taken or screenshot that you have taken. And then best practices are adequately followed. This is about saying how does the configuration match your scenario. Then next one, logical network infrastructure. Here we've taken a picture of Active Directory and how we configured it. And then the description they're given 7 marks for. Configuration of network services, that's DNS and DHCP. Network security, we only did the firewall. So you can do the firewall. They also gave us examples of Wireshark, etc. Then performance monitoring, we did performance monitor. We recorded the performance, remember? And then they've given 3 marks for describing that screenshot. So this gives you now an idea of the screenshots that's required to be taken for your POE, the last activity. So it's not just the screenshot, it's also the description of the screenshot that they've given us marks for. And that concludes this demo.